Krett! Oh my god.
Alright, what's up guys? We are live, it is me, and this week is actually Wolfie joining me. Things are a little bit different over here. How you doing? They call you Young Wolf, they call you V2032. And now you're here to talk about, well, Smite.
What's up? How y'all doing?
So, yeah, today's show, we're really just going over what happened in last week's SPL. It was really the second week. Things are now rolling. Like we're in this, right? First week,
Yeah.
you just sort of don't really know what's going on. We had some of the, let's say, lower-end games, right? Just sort of being honest there. And now we got, finally, the teams from Worlds playing head-to-heads. But I want to start with really some of the first games of the week. And we're really going to focus on NA, so let's just blast through Europe real quick. Dignitas versus Upcoming Stars. Upcoming Stars played better than I think was expected, but Dignitas 2-0'd them. And that's like, there's no story there. It's just like, Dignitas 2-0'd them because Dignitas is really good.
By looking at it, it looks like they were severely outpicked.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Well, I mean, it's also hard to say, right? Because this is, like, the first week of the SPL, so teams coming out of scrims are going to have their own different metas. Like, Osiris, not something that has really been picked in North America up until Divios' game, and Divios didn't seem entirely comfortable in the character. Like, he played it, and he did okay, but he didn't carry. He didn't go full Divios. He didn't do what he does. And I'm just going to drop the link in the chat. We're looking at the Reddit game reviews that are uploaded by, this one by Mountain Goat, and then some of the others by MLB Star. But overall, I mean, it's the 2-0. It was expected. Dignitas is a great team this season. They're volatile, right? Like, there's no argument there. Variety, Frosty, Shadow Nightmare, Frezzy, and Youngbay. I think Youngbay and Variety are, like, the calm players. And then between Frosty, Shadow Nightmare, and Frezzy, you have some of the most volatile and passionate players in the European scene. That can totally work.
Yes.
I think it worked for a long time ago. It worked for the North American Dignitas when you put Zapman and Lasses on the same roster. They got that figured out.
It's good because, like, Youngbay is a good... how do I say? He can bring the temperature down.
Yeah.
On a competitive team, he is the equalizer. Like, he will shut your ego down. He will make you be quiet, and you will just listen, which is good for volatile players because they get out of control sometimes during games.
Yeah, totally. So it's really important to have that. And then I think eventually the players sort of even off and get comfortable with each other, which is really good. Yeah. Moving into the second game, Titan versus London Conspiracy. Once again, this was like sort of expected. It was the 2-0 going to Titan, and London Conspiracy. You know, I mean, I don't want to like do the thirst thing because we've done that enough. But when you go into the SPL and you change out crucial roles like mid and jungler like right at the start, it's just bad news. Like, even if it's the proper change, even if it needs to happen like non-Dignitas, it still sucks.
It's hard. It's really rough. I think like the worst part about it isn't that like it's hard to get used to. It's the mentality change. It brings negative vibes on the team no matter how positive you are.
Yeah. And then now, like, eventually it can click. Eventually it could be great. And I mean, Suntouch is a good jungler, but more importantly, I think Arrow is a fantastic mid laner. I think he could be exactly what London Conspiracy needs. But he's going to have to sort of find his place. He's going to have to figure it out, and so will the team. Fnatic and Trig. I think this is interesting, because Fnatic is the team that, while they underperformed at Worlds, are still really freaking good. And they finally had the roster, like the role swap that needed to happen. I think a little bit similar to EGR putting Lasses back in mid. They put Captain Twig in the jungle. And if you've ever checked out his stream, he doesn't stream too often, but when he does, he plays Joust, and he plays Assassins more often than not. This works. Like, I think he's where he should be. Zero's also most notably the jungler that played Vulcan.
Yeah.
Like, you have players that are so good that Captain Twig puts Shock in the mid lane, and Zero's puts Vulcan in the jungle, and they pull it off. That's great. That's wonderful. But homies, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You like switch those kind of. I mean, Chalk in the jungle. I guess season 1 at the time when they played it mid, like you could do that, but it seemed weird. So this is a nice change. They did it at a good time. They just, I think it is a little bit similar to what happened with London Conspiracy. You're switching your mid, you're switching your jungle, and a team that hasn't changed in that respect is just gonna kill it.
I think Captain Trig is too good in middle for take him out of middle. I think he's too much of a clutch player, which is what you need your mage to be.
Okay.
If they were like, if they were really, really like looking to swap something, they would have to like swap out Zyros and just get somebody who's willing to play the characters that they need him to play instead of taking Twig out of his respective role. That's just
So what's a clutch player?
a clutch player is a player who's able to hit things and do things when they really matter. Like
Okay.
you can count on that player when the chips are down. You know what I mean? Like they might not do things all the time, but when it hits the fan, they are the people you count on.
Do you think you could draw a comparison to Lassus there? Or is he something different?
Lassus is a clutch player. Yes.
Okay.
He might do things a little bit too aggressive sometimes, but like you can
Yeah.
count on him to outplay the person he's against. You can count on him to land that ultimate. You can count on him to like land ability when it needs to be landed. And I think that's what Twig is on that team. And I think if it was down to Twig in the jungle and or swapping Zyros out for another player or making him learn new characters, it's swap Zyros out. Not because Zyros isn't a good player, but Twig isn't the one who's underperforming in his spot.
Okay. Sure. I don't know. At the same time, it feels like they're playing what they want to play, right? Which is
true.
hard. So, I don't know, like, if a player really loves Assassins, as long as they can play it, they probably should be jungling. If they really love mages, as long as they can play it, they probably should be in mid lane. And I think it can be okay to have that clutch player in the jungle, and that more reliable player in the mid lane. At the same time, sometimes you just have the wrong players, the wrong types of players for the meta. I think that's something that teams will deal with over time, like, just in the long sense of space. Like, sometimes, Batman in the Hunter role. I talk about EGR a lot because I'm their coach. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Zapman in the Hunter role, known for being aggressive in the duel lane and killing the shit out of people, because he's the Zapman, and he's better than you. And right now, you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
You wait, and you carry, and Barracuda is feeling really good about this meta.
Yes, he is.
Like, homie is stoked. Except, I don't think he likes Shablanki, but, like, aside from that, I think he's down.
Yeah.
So
It's great. It's great for me because I swapped over to the solo lane, and I love just going in all the time. So it's good.
yeah, so lane very aggressive now. Great for Zalia.
Yes.
Not so good for a player like, who do I want to...
Oh, we'll get into that when we go to NA.
yeah, I think we will. Yeah, less good for the Omega type players. Less good for the Omega type players and more good for like the Zalia type players. Solo lane really aggressive right now. Assassin's very strong. Bruisers less OP. Maybe too less OP. We'll see. I think that's an interesting discussion as well. I don't think I linked the Fnatic versus Trig game. Here it is. And so, well, you're a solo laner. What are your thoughts on this Nemesis solo into Bakasura? I fucking loved it.
It's not good. So like,
Okay.
what ended up happening is they basically relied on the fact that like they were going to get to late game, but if this was played correctly, the Nemesis should have been shut down to the point of feeding uncontrollably. She doesn't have a reliable way to clear, and she can't really duel you if the minions are there. She doesn't have this like the survivability or damage to do that.
So you think Maniac should have like taken fights when it's 6 minions and 6 minions?
Yeah, he should have just been going on like all the time. Like,
Okay.
if you like, so there's two ways this is gonna happen. Like, either Zalia's gonna lose a lot of gold, or their jungler's gonna sit in a solo lane and try to just force fights on Maniac, which is a possibility.
Right.
Which leaves openings for other spots. If you know the jungler has to sit in a solo lane because it's a losing matchup, You
Yeah, it's
can
really
win
bad.
both your fights. You can do like it's good when your other lanes are winning and you know there's nothing happening over there,
Hmm.
or if you go in there once in a while. But like Nemesis, you kind of have to sit there for a while, and she's killable. She's not unkillable. She's killable.
Right.
So she can be ganked for one, and she can be blown up for another. Or you can just force fights other places because they only should have to be there and Maniac should be able to dominate Xayah. Now, it could also come down to the fact that Maniac made a mistake and died for whatever reason, but
Yeah. I
you're
mean,
hoping,
so
like,
I think what you're talking about is like the ideal, like the hypothetical matchup, how it
yeah,
should happen, right? And so what actually happened was a little bit different. And I think Maniac was inexperienced with the matchup and sort of didn't play it right. Because what Xayah did was anytime Maniac went on her Butcher Blades, Retribution Shield, and Slice and Dice turned that around. And then ult for ult, Retribution Shield, and the Nemesis ult were good enough to just sort of like overpower the Bakasura. At the same time, Assassin versus Assassin solo lane is so frickin' snowbally that honestly,
yes.
who knows? Like, if you
Um,
get the first 2 kills, it's probably just done.
you beat that a certain way. You just buy Hog. You just buy Fist.
Oh, to
You buy
remove the
Fist.
shield?
Yeah, you remove the shield and she can't fight you.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. There you go. And Baka's like there are some assassins where I feel like Hog 3 is really good. Thor, obvious. I think Mercury, sure. Sir Krett can definitely get out on like the Fire Giant, because this really was about maybe an early gold Fury if you teleport for it. Baka probably want Fist. He doesn't have any CC anyway, so yeah, I really like that. Um,
It's the same mentality as if you're going like the way Baka can handle like humbats, which I found out by
Yeah.
someone pooping me. I forgot who it was. Is you buy beats too. Like you go your first DPS item, you buy beats too. You ult in when he ults, you pop beats, you beat him in the fight.
right, because
That's how
the ult just isn't hitting you at all.
Yes, that's how you do it. And the same situation would be for this. If you know that he's going to pop shield, he's going to pop ult, boom, you hit him with stun. What's he going to do after that?
So sidetracking a little bit, like, is Baka just the best?
There's safe picks against Baka. Baka is just like the reason why assassins are so strong right now is because you can't build defensive items level 1, so they can
Right,
force
yeah.
fights on you. They force you to outplay them. When a character has like dominating the creep wave is the important part. When you can dominate, you can just win. You know what I mean? Like you can rotate over,
Right.
you get more EXP, you can force them, you fight them in the minion wave, you can kill them. And that's why assassins are stronger than warriors right now, is because they can kill you. Warriors don't have that kill potential. That being said, you can pick warriors and just not die the Baka. And then Baka isn't what Bakasura is like feared for being. If he doesn't
Right.
get fed, he's not.
At the same time, like, you're not getting fed, but you're still kind of getting farmed.
Yeah.
So it's not, like, that sounds like it doesn't beat him. It's like, well, hopefully he won't rotate and kill people now.
It's the same mentality that was like a Hades. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's getting equal farm, but if Baka's not getting ahead of you, it's not as good. Staying equal farm with Baka is Baka
Right.
losing the lane. Same thing. If you're equal farm with Baka, you're actually beating him in lane. If he's not obnoxiously ahead of you, if your team plays correctly, you can shut down Baka. That's
Right, yeah, Baka sort of does need to, like, kill people in 2 to 3 hits.
Yes.
He has to kill people really fast. I guess the other thing that we saw this game that was pretty good was Cuvo Friend in the jungle with Ymir. The most European pick, honestly, is the jungle and
love
solo
that.
Ymir, except for Pernicus. Alright, what do you love it?
I love it because I think Guardians are amazing in the jungle. Like setup is amazing.
Setup
like,
is really good.
Since you could put so much damage in solo lane because of the way it is now, and you can put so much damage on other roles, it's having someone who can initiate that's all over the map is amazing. Like that's why do you think Thor is so scary? It's not because Thor has like this amazing gank or anything. It's because he has CC.
Yeah, he has CC and he's
Stunned.
fucking everybody, everywhere. Like,
Yeah, that's what it is.
and then when you have, so just looking at the team comp from game 2 here with Trig, they've got a Ra, who's great with setup. They've got a Rama, who's great with setup, and they've got a Hercules in the support role who has a boulder that works with setup too. I'm not going to say it's great, but it's something. So, they're just they're setting up across the map.
My mentality on that is warriors aren't bad for duo lane supports, they're bad as the game goes on. So
Yeah.
if you put a warrior support and you win the early game, and then just put a Guardian in the jungle, he's still good early game and becomes a support for late game. I don't see it doesn't.
Well, I
I
also
don't
just
see a
think
negative
like
for it.
this is fucking Tricks tank. It's what he does.
Yeah, and that
like,
too.
like you just, and you know, I think it is sort of like we talked about it earlier with the clutches. If your jungle's your clutch player, give him the god that he could do that because that's what he
Yes.
does. If your solo laner is Azalea, let him carry you on Nemesis because fuck it, or let him carry you on Vamana because he always has.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of the meta, players are still good at certain things, and if you try and make them do something else, it might work. Maybe they find something that they're really good at that they didn't know, but probably won't be as successful as them sticking to really what they know. And this Hercules for Tricks tank, I think he's played it like 3 times so far. Like, he's played a lot of Hercules so far in the S. By far, I think his most popular pick, and it suits him. I think the next question is like, so throughout Smite, there are times where the bans are really strict, and there are the times where the bans are not so strict. I think right now our bans are pretty strict. Like, Bastet's freaking scary, Serket's freaking scary, Thor's freaking scary, Athena, like, some people ban Arachne, some people ban Sylvanas. There's a lot of stuff you want to ban, and I don't think you can really fit in that first phase target ban. It's hard, at the very least.
I think it isn't. I think that there's like OP picks all around the board, and like there's going to be teams that want to ban the OP picks because they're just better at playing the game than you are, and all they have to do is ban the OP picks.
Sure.
There are going to be other teams who are just good at taking away your comfort picks and then dealing with the OP picks. And like how would I explain that? I think C9 is a team who is comfortable with just taking away the OP picks and just outplaying you,
Sure.
while MM is a team that's going to take away your picks.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, that works for them and against them on both teams, but yeah, I think you can let certain picks go by if you're that good on the OP picks. That makes any sense.
Yeah, definitely. Like, if you're like, okay, well, if we just let 3 or 4 OP things through, it's fair, and then ban away Tricks tanks Hercules and go after his god pool, because going after people's god pool, like, under the right circumstances is really good. It hasn't been a thing against junglers for a while. Junglers have sort of, by the way people are banning with, like, you ban Serket, you ban Thor, you ban Bastet. That's 3 junglers in your god pool gone. You need to have, like, 2 to 3 more. That doesn't really work, but other roles, you really can go for the god pool.
Yes, you can.
Like, maybe not Hunter, but mid, support, and solo lane you can.
You can Hunter. You could ban Hunter out. You ban Hunter out by banning the characters that are going to counter that counter.
Well, yeah, that's more of a matchup thing, but it's not really going for
Yeah.
the god pool. It's not saying, like, we'll ban the things that you play, so you have to play something you're bad at, or
That's
not as
true,
good at.
right.
Like, because it's like, okay, well, they forced me onto, I don't know, Rom instead of Cupid. I guess I'll just have to hit auto attacks. like the closest thing you could do is somehow force someone onto AMC, and then they'll be like, oh no, it's from the left hand, what do I do? Like, that's the closest you could get on a Hunter.
Unless it's not time, and he's like, about time!
Yeah.
Say.
Alright, and then last matchup in EU. So, Fnatic going down to Trig. They looked like Trig just figured them out and just, like, killed them. Like, Trig knew exactly what was going to happen in those games. Fnatic and Titan, pretty similar. There were some rough situations happening there for the Titan boys. First game, Kanye Life going 0-8, which is like Kanye is like your boy. You give him Ymir and he's good. And then, so he goes 0-8 first game. Second game, Badger goes 0-9. That just seems backwards to me.
I
Right?
think that Fnatic is finally like, and this isn't like bashing you. I think this is just like,
Yeah.
this is complimenting you. I think Fnatic is like, they took the mentality from NA and just said, okay, Ymir has no escape. We're literally just going to kill him over and over and over again. He's going to fall so far behind that even if the other team gets kills, like, we're going to be in a 45 situation. We're just going to win because
Yeah.
he's physically out of the game. And I think that's what they did. And I think that's what got them the win of that game.
It kind of definitely worked game one. They did let a Circuit through, and Repikas like did well, but I feel like Circuit's the one OP god. While really good, like eventually team fights happen, and Circuit is less able to do her thing. Whereas
I don't
like,
think so. I don't think so. I think it's she just can't fall behind. I think that's all it is. Because like in team fight, she's still slippery and she'll still one shot people and she still has CC and she's really hard to play. But if you're that good, it doesn't matter. I just think that if at any point in time you fall behind in gold, she gets pooped on. If you can stay in gold, I think she's just
okay. Well, I think specifically what I mean is like part of what makes Circuit so good is picking people off with her ultimate. But in late game team fights, if you ult at the wrong time, you just get like the old school Arachne treatment where it's like, look, you're standing still, and you just kill her. So like that definitely goes away. But I mean, you still have the poison, you still have the dash, and she's still mobile. Either way, like Fnatic just sort of dealt with everything Titan threw at them, which was really impressive. Reels performed like we're used to. I mean, he killed it. Zero's having a little bit of trouble in the mid lane on his Vulcan, but then he just played it again. Like he's finally able to play Vulcan, which is in the right role, which is great.
Well, I'm happy he wasn't scared to pick Vulcan again.
Yeah.
After the first game went the way it did, because some people would just be like, "You didn't do very well. I don't want to do it." Just give it to me again.
Yeah. Like, this clearly looks like a team that knows what they want to play, because Game 1, Hercules, Arachne, Vulcan, Shablanki. Game 2, Hercules, Arachne, Vulcan, Shablanki.
I'm down.
Like,
I like it.
They know what they want to do, and up against Trig, they didn't get to do that, right? It was, like, a little bit different. So Trig definitely, I think, shook things up. They got the, like... Game 2 against Trig, they got the Shablanki and the Arachne, but it was a Scylla and a Bakasura. And then, like, Game 1, every pick's different. So... Yeah, just... Fnatic played their game against Titan, I guess. And that's awesome for them. Let's talk about NA, a scene that both of us are a little bit more familiar with, because we sort of do things there. And
I play against them, so I know them.
Yeah, there you go. Epandary 1, 3, and 10 is a lot less fine than 5, 1, 5, bro. It's like a better KDA, bro.
Well, it's like, if people die and go negative on characters, especially in a competitive game, like it's a mental thing. You guys look at it I played it in ranked, then I fed one game and played it again. It's fine. It's different when there's stuff on the line. When you're in a competitive game, on stream, on all that stuff, it's a mental game. You want to do as best you possibly can, and if you didn't do well the game before, it's in the back of your head. The fact that you're able to put it behind him and go 5-1 and 5 the next game is really, really, really important.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Let's move on to NA. Melios Maror. Still not gonna ever pronounce that name correctly. It's just not gonna happen. What do you call him?
MM. Or M&M.
That just makes me hungry. That makes me hungry. I
want
some M&Ms. Wolfie, I want some M&Ms.
I'll give you M&Ms.
All right. So they go up against Cock. At first glance, it just sort of looks like Cyclone got to do his thing. Which, when you're looking at a team like that's like the first thing on the list. Is like, stop Cyclone from doing what he does.
I don't think that's it.
What do you mean?
I think they're alright. So, like, is an early game team.
Yeah, for sure.
They're an early game team, and like what makes them do what they do is if you allow them to function early game, they will snowball out of control. So if Cyclone gets to play a character like that, of course he's going to explode. And again with Weekend also. And this is why you see their scores always be so like one-sided. They're either they look like the best players in the world, or people in chat are like, those players suck.
Yeah.
They don't belong in the SPL. Do you see them going 1 and
Right.
9? It's just that's what they do. They're a very explosive team, and that's why I don't like take anything away from COG for them being as like the negative scores that they are, because when gets their way, they literally get their
That's how
way.
they make the game look. Yeah. Yeah. But like what is MM's way? They get an early advantage. They sort of take control of the game, probably get an early Gold Fury, and then Cyclone just starts to like appear randomly throughout the map, killing people, jumping out of bushes,
It's
scaring
MM,
children.
It's MM adopting TSM's playstyle. So what makes and this is why Cyclone Spin and Divios look the way that they do. I'm not taking away that they're amazing players, because they're phenomenal players.
Yeah, yeah.
Gars and Weekend make sure they win the early game. They make sure they win the early game.
Yeah, yeah.
If you notice, and it is a very common thing in majority of their games, you will see Gars or you'll see Weekend around the solo lane before the first mid camp spawn.
Right.
And that allows their solo lane to get an early game advantage, whether it be pushing, rotating over, getting kills, whatever it might be. They do that very often, majority of the time. And if you get that solo lane ahead and you can start rotating for mids and they start like winning team fights and it transitions into a Gold Fury, those two players are going to look like the best players in the game. And that's not anything against them. It's a very smart play style. It's very good for them. Congratulations.
It sounds like it's essentially a 4 support one, not like really 4 protect one. That's more of a range carry sort of thing, but it's like 4 set up one. You set up your solo laner to carry you,
and then you have the free roam to go to dual lane because your solo lane is so far ahead that he can just do whatever he wants. So that's something that they do, and so yeah, Cyclone. That's why Cyclone can get away with playing what he plays and do what he does, and he does it well. And that's kudos to them for being able to pull it, because not everybody can pull that off.
right? And like, I feel like you just can't let Cyclone get rolling. Like, you just have to shore up so he can't get his advantage, and that's in 2 different ways. He has 2 ways of doing it. One, he's better than your solo laner, he kills him.
Mm-hmm.
You can't let that happen. Like, if you have to, play the chalk. You could AFK, it'll be fine, you're not gonna die.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, I guess number 1.5, Cyclone can't really get so much lane pressure that he's allowed to do other things. Right?
Yes.
Like, if Cyclone starts, like, taking over your jungle really slowly, like, first he gets your blue buff, then he gets your speed buff, then he gets your back harpies, that's really bad news. And so that's really on your solo laner. And then, like, you can't fall for the antics. Like, you can't let Weekend get Cyclone fed.
It's hard. That's
the hard
really
part.
Hard to do.
Especially because, like, yeah, Weekend mostly has his eyes on the solo lane, but if he happens to get a kill anywhere, he will immediately somehow, almost magically, transition that to more pressure on the solo lane. Like, everything, Weekend cashes in all of his advantages as like, advantages for Cyclone.
And then what that ends up doing is that lets the solo lane be able to move over, and while your solo lane can't move, and it transitions into Gold Furies, and then everyone on the team gets ahead, and then everyone's like, "What is this?"
Everyone on the team gets ahead, and Allied and Incons start like cashing in their welfare checks. Like, we survived the early game. Now Cyclone's just handing out little donations of gold. It's great. So COG having some trouble. Let's talk about that team, though. COG is one of the teams that made it in through the qualifiers. I think they were one of like the less obvious teams. MM and Denial looked like they were shoo-ins, and they performed like it in the qualifiers. COG having a little bit more trouble coming through the 3-way tie, courtesy of your team, actually, at the time, Polyjuice, forcing that 3-way tie. COG's weird because it feels to me like they have a very specific play style that's almost more specific than other teams. Like COG has get Cyclone big and control the early game, but that's really generic. Whereas I feel like COG is walk back backwards and disengage and play defensively.
I feel like you're overanalyzing COG because you want me to like just. I'm gonna be completely honest with everyone
Go
on that
for it.
team. Everyone on that team is inexperienced. About the most experienced person is Herwin, and he's inexperienced.
Okay.
And like, problem with that team is they just don't know. They haven't had time to grow. The players are good. They might not be the best players in the world, but they're good. They have good synergy. They work as a team. They have heavy carries. They have clutch players. They don't know what to do in the game. They don't know what to do when shit goes wrong. They don't know what to do in that kind of pressure of a game, and they just have to get experience. I can't judge them, critique them, or even like say anything about that team yet because they haven't had time to blossom or do what they're supposed to do yet.
I
That's
think,
just my opinion.
at least watching them in the qualifiers, it felt like the way they played was really good for growth. Like,
Yes.
they have a game plan, and they do the game plan. If you ban it out, they just pick other ways to do the same thing. They're
Yes.
always sort of doing one thing, and they're getting good at it. And eventually, hopefully, they'll be so good at it that they just beat everybody with their strategy.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
problem is, like, eventually you get to, like, the really high level of play where I don't think Smite is there yet, but we could look at League of Legends where it's like, okay, well, this kind of composition, they're running this kind of composition, let's run this other kind. And
That's gonna be fun.
every so often you see that, like, it's gonna come, it's gonna happen, but it's not really there. It's not fully formed.
Oh no, we're not there yet. We're not. So like, all right. So League of Legends has been out for so long that those players are so obnoxiously good at that game that they know down to a T what happens.
Yeah.
So like these Zatman plays, they happen all the time, and it's just normal to them because they know. Like the players that have it happen to them know it's going to happen to them as they're fighting. There's just nothing they can do about it. So we're not there yet, and when we do, the game's going to look a lot different. We're just going to look back and just
Yeah,
go,
it
wow,
is.
he sucks back then.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
ranked
totally.
in League of Legends is like pro play in Smite right now because it's so normal to know what to do at this point that even the ranked players know.
Totally. And I mean that's just gonna take time. I mean,
Yes.
look at how far we've come. Where like, you know, back in the day, PAX East, you were on RG, and it's like we hardly even knew what a shot caller was.
Oh my god. It was
Like-
that man, that was it.
It was that man, and everyone else was just sort of like, can we kill the Gold Fury? We got a kill. What do we do with the kill? Fuck it, let's try gold. And like, I remember I played in that tournament. I played against your team, and you guys, I think, accidentally picked a composition that my boys had no idea what to do with, because you had an Odin, a Ymir, and an Anhur, and you did a Gold Fury, and we were like gonna come in and fight you, and there was a pillar in the way, and then a wall, and then an Odin cage. I was like, they totally didn't plan that. That just happened. Like, yeah, so it'll grow and it'll happen. Catching up is really weird. It's really weird and difficult, and I'm really excited to see what COG can do because they're on their way. At the same time, as we'll see in later games, I think Melius Maror is one of the best teams in the North American SPL right now. Like, just sort of by the way the winds have gone.
Yeah.
Like,
But I also think that they're taking advantage of the inexperienced teams more so.
Sure.
It's showing a lot more than.
but at the same time, they beat
They're-
Denial. They 2-0'd Denial, right?
Mm.
And Denial beat TSM, and TSM beat Cloud9. So, like, technically, well, not technically, but sort of, MM should be able to beat TSM and should be able to beat Cloud9, right?
Okay, so this is my theory. All right.
All right,
Now,
go for it.
All right.
I wanna hear it.
People are gonna say Wolfie's BM. All right, so
Yeah, you
this
are.
is my theory. Okay, so Denial is Denial. They're crazy players that pull things out that people don't know what to do with, right? I personally think if we're going down to pretty much pure skill level, I
Mm-hmm.
think that C9 and TSM are ahead of everybody in pure skill level.
What's pure skill,
Be-
though? Like, what is that?
Like mechanical skill, them being better than the other player is a thing.
So,
It-
like,
it's a
total
thing.
of knowledge and mechanics and hitting abilities and stuff like that,
They're-
excluding rust and, like, lack of practice?
And changing meta. The meta has changed a lot.
So we're ignoring the fact that the meta has changed, and when we're just talking about actual skill, We're ignoring the fact that the meta has changed, and we're ignoring the fact that they might not have been scrimming as much.
Yes.
Okay,
Or just
sure.
pure skill. I think they're ahead. Now the meta's changed, so things are on a whole different level. And I think that the reason why Denial beat TSM this weekend is because they accepted the meta faster than TSM has, and that's a thing. You said it before. A player might not fit this meta. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's a thing. It's a thing. So skill wise, I put them, and then right after them, I put MM, and I think that's fair. But I think MM is better at beating inexperienced teams than the top 2 teams.
Sure.
I think they are so explosive and so much better in those early games. They put so much pressure the other teams don't know how to deal with, which is why EGR was able to beat MM because they know how to deal with it. They've done this. They've played this. While they might not be able to beat the other teams, like the newer teams, and they might not be able to beat the top teams, EGR might have the trouble with that, but they can beat MM because they can get past. They know. They know those players. They know Kiki, they know Ally, they know Incomp, they know Cyclone, they know Weekend. They know what they do, so they can play against it. But MM knows how to beat everyone else. I would not be surprised if MM just beats everyone else the entire time until the other teams get experience. Mm-hmm. While they could take games off the top 2. But I don't think they're going to beat TSM or C9.
You don't think MM's going to beat TSM or Cloud9?
I don't think they're going to purely off experience. Purely off that they know what the enemy team... They know what MM does.
Okay, I think that's actually one of the most interesting points on this discussion. Let's talk a little bit about the games we saw from C9 and TSM, and then we'll come back to that and talk about that upcoming game, because I think TSM versus MM is really the highlight game for this weekend, right? Like, that's the game where we're really going to see what happens in this split. So, Cloud9 versus Enemy. It was a 2-0. It was our first introduction to Cloud9. Anister can play Circuit. It's confirmed. And we saw a little bit of C9's willingness to give up the Bastet to get the Circuit. That's something that they really seem to like. Which, like, it's sort of standard banning, right? Like, try and get the OP pick you want. Make sure you're either getting it with no trade or getting it with an even trade. Like, that's pretty normal. We've been doing that for years. We figured that one out at PAX East 2 years ago. We had that.
Can I just say, before we go into anything else after that, is people were going off on Omega playing Chalk, and that's cool. Like, Omega played a really good game, but Andy single-handedly carried that first game. That team
Andy's
fight
really
where he
good.
just did everything was literally, like, I'm just sitting there, I'm like, those are just Circuit things. They were just like, what's happening? And I'm just in chat. Hashtag Circuit things.
Yeah. She, like, runs around and kills people. That said, it was also a fantastic showing for Bronx Bombers. I mean, he really, really played well that game. He stepped up.
I just want to say, when everyone was like, oh, Paradox do ADC, or this, I'm like, I saw Bronx Bombers in games. I was playing, he was getting into rank games. It was when he was like first coming up. And I just saw him play, and I said on stream, I'm like, that's the next big AD carry. And everyone was like, what? I'm playing against him. And I was like, who is this guy? And just like, that's the next big AD carry. And it's like, I don't believe it. It's like, mark my words. That is the next Atman Barracuda. Right there. You don't believe me. He doesn't know how to play the game, but that's the next big AD carry. I could tell just by going against him.
Bronx is really good. Like, really impressive player. At the same time, like, a lot of people are saying Hunters are OP right now. It's a class that's really freaking good at doing damage from relative safe distance. So, if for whatever reason you don't kill the Hunter within the first 2 seconds, and they play properly, they kind of do go 16, 4, and 10, regardless of whether you win, regardless of whether you get them eventually. Like, I don't want to say Bronx Bombers didn't play well, but I think he played within the limitations of the class. Like, it wasn't mind-blowing, it was just like, wow, this guy's really good. But he didn't do anything that wasn't supposed to happen, except for maybe someone playing that well against C9.
this thing I like to bring out against that. If you're doing what your class is meant to do, then
Yeah.
that's what makes you the phenomenal player. Like
Right.
he outboxed players, he did what he was supposed to do. He played his role to where it was supposed to be played, and that is against a team like C9.
Yeah, which is fantastic. I just sort of think every so often you see a player that like somehow is able to bring it past the level of their role, like Devious did in season 1.
He's inexperienced.
Yeah, that's true.
Bronx is the newest AD carry in the SPL.
Yeah.
He's the new. Like people say, famous hate. No, Bronx
Famous Hate has been competitive for a long fucking time.
Bronx is wet behind the ears. Like he's new. Give him the amount of time that the other 80 carries have had, and I will 100% say that he's going to explode. He's a scary player, and I've always respected him for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's really awesome to see. And Enemy is that sort of team where it's like, they're the team where you don't necessarily expect them, like, you put them in the other matchups and it's like, well, maybe they can take COG, but the other teams are sort of like, maybe they'll get a game, maybe they won't.
Oh, they're probably going to get pooped on.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like, just how well can they do in those games? Can they make it a 2-0 that is, like, good games, lasts a while, lasts, 30 minutes, like, is a win and not a loss? Or are they just sort of gonna die?
I hope, like, fully expect them to lose every game in the SPL. I'm fully expect them to do that, but I hope they don't
Lose poorly.
I don't want it to like kill them. I don't want it to be like, I don't want to play this anymore because I lost. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, that's
basically what we had to go through with Thirst. But it's like, you just gotta like take it on the chin and move forward and just forget about it. And
yeah, you want them to have like the games like that one game where you played Thor and you could not have physically carried any harder.
yeah, and I want them to come out positive with it, not a negative mentality for it. Like
It's
the
hard
fact
to
that
do.
Bronx went 16-4 in that game. Like I want him to feel good about himself, not bad about himself that he lost, and that's probably the hardest thing to do about being a competitive player.
Yeah, I mean, like, when you look forward to relegations, Enemy will probably be there. They'll probably be relegated. They're probably going to face the teams from the Challenger Cup. And the thing is, the top 4 teams out of the Challenger Cup are likely experiencing growth. It's likely a positive experience because they're achieving something each week. Whereas
Yes.
Enemy might be achieving something, but it's hard to think that way when the end result is you lose. Whereas, like, it still is an achievement to take Cloud9 to 30 minutes.
Yes.
That's hard. That's
Yes.
not easy. It's an achievement to get double-digit kills against Cloud9. That's not easy. At the same time, it's still a 2-0 loss. And so if they're able to maybe grasp on the facts that they're accomplishing things as opposed to just losing, then they can keep their morale up, and in relegations show us just how much better than the Challengers teams they are.
Yes.
Because the thing is, it's a league, it's a spectrum, there's going to be a best team and the worst team, and you want your worst team to, like, still be good. And I think
Yeah.
Enemy is good. They just are a little bit too far behind to be the sort of team that loses 2-1 instead of 2-0.
Yeah. It's gonna take some time.
Alright, let's talk about what I thought was... I think what everyone thought was going to be the marquee matchup this weekend. Cloud9 versus TSM. It was 1-2, and it looked kind of sloppy. I mean, honestly, it could have been a lot better for both teams. Teams that had incredibly strong solo laners seemingly out of practice, right? Devious had like a good Hades.
I don't think that's it. I think it's they're not used to the meta yet. 100%.
Okay.
I
Well,
think,
yeah. I mean, out of practice in a general sense. Like, that's not the Devious we know. Like,
I'm gonna
Devious
say
didn't look like Devious. Go for it.
I'm gonna say something people get really mad at me, and I'm gonna
Alright.
say it anyway. And fuck everybody, because I still love this person to death. Love it.
Sure.
I love this person to death. But
Sure.
Devios is gonna look really mortal during this season, unless things get changed.
How so?
These are not his characters.
Yeah.
This is not his comfort zone. Divios is Divios because he can run around, be tanky, and he's not scared of anything. That's not this season. Can't
Yeah.
really do that. And I'm saying that as a person who loves Divios. Like that's a really close friend of mine. That's
Divios
not
is a
me.
great guy.
Yeah, he's basically my son. He played every character I played. He's basically my son. But like he's gonna look really mortal this season. So I think if anyone's affected more than the most affected solo lane in this meta is Divios because Omega likes playing squishy characters.
Yeah, he just didn't because TSM and C. So we've talked about meta a little bit on the show so far, and I think it's important to note that when you look at these two teams face off, whether or not you're talking about last season where it was COG versus COG, or this season where it's TSM and C9, they're scrim partners. I believe they are again this season, and they scrim to the extent that they create their own meta and just sort of do it. So,
Yes.
like, when you see them, like, do a thing, and, like, I don't know, a Chalk versus Iris lane, they've done that a lot. Like,
Yes.
they know how that plays out. And
Yes.
that's why Omega has conformed to Divios in the
Yes.
past. This season, we might see the opposite. We might
Yeah.
see Divios conforming to Omega, who, like, Homie played Hell and Loki. That was his thing before Divios, like, became really
Yeah.
good and they started scrimming and Omega played Vamana forever.
Do you know secret thing? Do you know why Omega played Vamana in every tournament known to mankind? He
Man,
told me this.
I know. I forgot it. But I
Alright,
have
so
known.
So I asked. I'm like, why do you always play Vamana? He's like, I'm used to playing with 150 ping and 160 ping. So when we go to LAN and I have 20 ping, I can't play the other gods. I have to play Vamana.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is why he always played Vamana because he couldn't hit abilities on 20 ping with like hell and stuff like that. So he played Vamana
That's really
instead.
funny. I don't know how you miss abilities on Hell.
That's
Those are
why.
some big circles, but yeah. So yeah, I think that's really a big point when you're looking at this matchup. Like, they have their own meta. They've done this before, so when you see Divios picking, I don't know. I think it's the sort of thing that will happen more late in the season. Once they've really started their practice up, because these teams have taken a break. Like, they did well in Worlds, they earned a break, they took it, and they might not be up to practice, really have the meta down, but late in the season, when C9 and TSM are facing each other and they do something weird, it's probably not weird to them. It's probably something that they've actually done a lot before. Here we saw a lot of the C9 decision to once again trade Cirquet and Bastet out. They did it 2 out of the 3 games, and it seemed a lot riskier in these matchups.
So they recognize that Andy is a powerhouse jungler.
Right.
They understand
Totally.
that Andy is probably one of their star players, easily top 2 players on the team. Whatever your first player is, whatever the hell, you can't say that Andy isn't first or second on that list for that team, and that's how they view themselves also. So they want to put Andy on a comfort pick, and what they're going to do is they're going to leave one of those junglers open every time, so Andy can get something like Thor, Hunbats, Bastet, Cirquet. They want him on one of those 4 gods, and they will put him on there because they would rather go against the enemy jungler on an OP god as long as Andy has an OP god too.
Right.
That is their mentality. They don't care.
It's a good mentality. I mean, having the mentality of, well, it's fine, you can have that, because we're going to play something equal and our guy's better, is a good mentality for a team to have.
Yes.
Now, hopefully it's correct. Hopefully it works, because if it doesn't, that gets mad awkward real quick. I guess the other thing to mention is MLC Self-Lun Jean Kui. Now, my team played a lot of Jean Kui this weekend. And it's always a good feeling to see what you're doing be done by C9 and TSM. That feels good, because it's sort of like, oh, hey, look, we're doing it right. They figured
Yeah.
that out, too. At the same time, Stealth had a lot of trouble with that god.
I just think it was the team comp. I think
Not
the
like
way.
a Zhonghui composition.
Yeah, I don't. That doesn't look like a zombie composition at all.
Hmm.
Like that's just that. That's my opinion on it. Like, because mostly knows how to play that, and he's really good at it. I just think that, and I also think that the TSM is one of those teams that really know how to punish mages. They really know how to punish mages.
Oh, yeah,
So they make
they've been punishing mages for a while now.
And Boosh is an animal. I played middle, and Boosh is just I don't even want to talk about it. I still have
It's
flashbacks.
scary. Yeah.
And it's a really scary day. Well, that's just. I also think Zonqui's being paid a lot because people don't know how to play Nemesis in this season.
It's not that
I-
hard. You press
It-
4.
It's complex to a point where you gotta know what you can get away with, and I think people don't.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
Because
Nemesis.
she's an extreme boxer. Like she's meant to box you out, and getting every bit out of that character, especially because she doesn't poop on you early game.
Mhm.
Getting everything out of that is important, and if you don't know how, you are not playing that character correctly, and that opens people up to play Jean Kui, because then, and when he gets to late game, you don't have a Nemesis. Oh my god! Remember when that all used to heal? Oh,
Which hill?
remember when Zonqui's ult used to heal?
Oh god,
I
no,
don't-
no.
I don't-
We didn't even think it was that good. That's the real shit. Is that Zhonghui came out and people were kind of like, eh.
I saw that character. I was like, no, please, oh god, no, no, no.
Yeah, I mean, Zhonghui, good character. A lot of ghosts, a lot of skill shots, very skill intensive. But on a serious note, very positioning intensive. You sort of have to know how to, like, do the mage thing of staying in the back and staying safe, and then knowing when to go completely ham. And I think that's sort of part of the problem that Stealth had. And then, yeah, the other part, like, team comp, kinda for Zhonghui. I think the first game, I want to say it was, like, the Ymir. That was the issue that sort of kept it from being, like, a good Zhonghui team comp, right? Like Shock's fine to dive in with Stealth, but Ymir sort of, like, freezes someone, and then he uses his ult or something, and Zhonghui is, like, still running. Like, Zhonghui keeps going, and Ymir just stays in the back.
I think the enemy team is just really good against Zhonghui.
That's also true. I mean, Hades and Geb can really disrupt him. You got Cats to put in his way, and then Boosh is going to hit you with
Shablanki
Kikokanal. Yeah, Shablanki ult is
Can't see where to position correctly.
so annoying. Yeah, I mean, that honestly, I think that's one of the biggest things that's difficult to remember when you're spectating a game, is just how disorienting the Shablanki ult actually is. Because you don't really, like, you see it as a spectator. You see it go off, but you don't feel it. Like, you don't know.
It's arguably the
Fuck
best.
that
ult.
ult, man. It's
It's
so
arguably
good.
the best ult in the game. I can't
Yeah.
stand it. I just can't. You can't see anything, and if they're fighting in those seconds where you're in there and you don't know where your teammates are, you can't. I
I had to
help.
play Gem in a ranked game yesterday, and I'm bad at support. They had a Shablanki, and, like, he'd ult, and I was like, I don't know who to fuck to shield, man. It's like press
can't
3,
see
so throw it somewhere. You're like, hope this saves somebody. It sucks. Ugh.
That ult. Oh man, global ults, man.
Yeah. Okay. Last game, TSM nails down the win. We saw Divius playing Osiris, and I wasn't actually too impressed with the way. Actually, here's another thing. Omega builds a tanky ass Bakasura.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Like
I don't
that
like that.
game 3, the Baka versus Osiris matchup was the most boring Bakasura in solo
Okay,
lane
so
I've
that-
ever seen.
I'm gonna say this right, and I found this out myself on accident. And I was saying on stream, you can pick Osiris. Osiris just doesn't do anything for your team as the game goes on. He can't really outduel like the 80 carries, but he could duel Baka in the lane. Baka can't really kill Osiris. Little,
Yeah.
like little unknown fact: if you pop your 3 before Baka does any abilities, it lowers the damage of his minions, it lowers the damage of his true damage, and his attacks. So Baka can't kill you.
At the same time, though, like Divios, maybe it was the way he was building, because he built damage like really late. But he would walk into a team fight and start auto attacking someone, and he just wasn't doing damage.
He becomes useless as the game goes on.
Yeah. So you think it's just sort of a stalemate, like similar to Chalk?
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
That's what. But I personally think that in that situation, you'd be better off playing Tier or Chalk.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the Tier didn't really work out.
Yeah, it's definitely a harder lane now.
Yeah, it is. It's just sort of like late game. You're like, hey, now I'm Tier.
Yeah. Like, can Hi-Rez please remove that thing where if you get stunned, like right at the beginning of your dash.
Oh yeah.
On. That's horrendous. It's already
That's
horrible
really
as it is. Like, but yeah, like when they added the new items into the game, Baka developed kill potential on Tier. He has kill potential on Tier. Like, if you play perfectly, you don't die on Tier, but he has kill potential. You can die.
Yeah, he can kill you. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're an amazing player or not, he can kill you. And if he plays perfect and you make one mistake, you're dead.
Yeah, totally.
Not so much on Osiris. Osiris, you can make a mistake, it's over.
Let's talk about the real upset. The real shit. The 2-1 coming out from Denial Esports. And so it went Denial, TSM, Denial. Honestly, Denial looked really good in all 3 games. Like, even the game that they lost, they had a lot of control early on, sort of made some mistakes that resulted in the win. This is also where we saw Odin played, I believe, twice. Odin lost both of his games, but at least the second game, I don't think was really from the pick. So game 1, Odin versus Bakasura solo lane, kind of shitty. You can do some stuff on Odin, but with the way his ult's currently bugged, it's kind of shitty.
That was a bad matchup.
Yeah. That's just not really the way to go against Bakasura, honestly.
I think he thought he was against Hunbats, not Bakasura.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Odin versus Hunbots makes a little bit more sense, I guess. Gars did play a nice Krett, though.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I think that was, like, Mark going off a little bit, Denial playing really freaking well in the early game, and the best getting lane control from Divios and taking over. We haven't seen Divios losing lane in a long-ass time.
New meta.
New meta.
Yeah, he's not.
But it's also, like, when you don't lose lane... When you don't lose, you lose the ability to play from behind. Like, it's a foreign concept to you. So maybe this is something that we're seeing from Divios now. Like, when he loses lane, he has some issues coming back. Like, he doesn't know how to play it as well.
I don't agree.
Okay.
I think he's just not using meta. I guess
sure
because he plays in ranked, and he does lose lane in scrims. He does lose lane in scrims. I believe he knows what to do. It's just, I think in the current game, it's just he's having a hard time adjusting.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a while, and he'll get there. He can play.
And like, he had a hard time adjusting in all of these games. The best having a better KDA in every match.
That's just shake camp in his lane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And that's fine. Like, if someone's having trouble,
oh my gosh,
you should
camp his lane. Yeah. You're
like,
right.
if someone's having trouble in the meta, like, camp them. Take that advantage. You take that advantage and you run with it.
You're right.
Game 2, right. TSM, I think, is just sort of TSM's win. I think it's just sort of like your weekly allotment for Gars killing everybody. It's gonna happen at some point. He's gonna kill everybody. Yeah, you have to deal with it and move on to the next game. He went 14-1-8. Sort of what Gars does. Odin support, I liked a lot better. Once again, like, Odin support is ring reliant. Like, that's why you're picking him. And the ring's currently bugged.
I think he's a jungle.
In a really shitty way. Well, yeah. But if you're picking Odin in the support role, you're thinking 2 things. Mid-game with the bird bomb, and early game, and the cage. Like, the cage is like what Odin's about, especially now. But it's bugged in a really shitty way.
I just don't like Odin support. Like I understand what you're saying.
Oh
I just don't
yeah,
like Odin support.
yeah. Interesting. I think it's the most interesting as a pick in the jungle. Probably the best. But I think like there's room for it in the support role in some ways. Like when you really need a cage and you can't put it in the jungle because you got a Circuit and a Bastet. Like
I don't think it's worth it. I think if you're gonna put Odin support, you have to have a Guardian somewhere else. He falls
they
off way too
did
fast.
need a lot more CC than they had. Like
He falls off way too fast.
that denial composition was really lacking in CC, which was a big problem. And just for those people who don't know, Odin's cage is currently bugged, where like sometimes your friendlies can't walk through it. You sort of like have to be moving fast enough, like get escape velocity and walk through it. It's really fucking weird.
It's really annoying.
It really sucks, and it's hilarious when your enemies have that problem. It's really funny.
I saw when you got trapped in our own team's Odin and all, and you're just like, wow, I'm gonna die to this.
Yeah, yeah. Big SNES patch though, so that's good. Yeah, thank God. Last game. Honestly, I think this was probably one of the more stressful games of the week for Denial, right? Game 1, you're like, this is going to be a hard match, but we can win it, and they won it. Game 2, TSM wins. And this is like the, oh shit, now it's just this game. This is the only game we have. Like, we have to win this. And they fucking did in 20 minutes. Denial, with the Denial strats. Like,
Team comp.
Isis mid.
No.
Krett in the jungle. It just looks like Denial. Like they're playing exactly what they want to play. Kretuhtuh's a fantastic Sylvanas. Mark can play Ul, of course. Mace the Face is known for his Isis. That's like...
Yep.
It's like, when you mention Mace the Face, the follow-up sentence is like, yeah, ban his Isis.
But it's not only that. They put like, for some reason, and like, I did not play it phenomenally, but like...
Yeah.
TSM put themselves on gods that they're not. Besides
Gars.
and Ionic.
And Snoopy with Rom.
Yeah, but Snoopy's... I don't know about if it's his Rom. Like, I think Snoopy's better on the other characters than Rom.
Sure.
But like, so you have Ionic and Gars, and they're not like the normal characters. Then you have Divios and Chang'e, knowing that he's going to get invaded, knowing he's going to end up being put like far behind at the beginning of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing they're not going to be able to like kill best very often. And then you have Bush on Hades in middle. Bush is a heavy carry player. He's a person that lands abilities, the clutch abilities that win games.
I think they sort of fixated on the mid matchup a little bit too much. Like, Hades versus Isis can be a pretty good matchup for the Hades. Like, she's like, I'm going to clear, and you're like, silence. Fuck you.
But then Hades becomes Hades as the game goes on.
Yeah. That said, I don't think that ever really happened just because of how early the game ended. Like, it was 20 minutes.
You're right.
Hades didn't even get a chance to fall off.
You're right.
He didn't even get a fucking chance. But yeah, I mean, as Rush said in chat, they gave us our babies. Like, that's Denial. Like, yeah, Sylvanas, Ul, Isis, Circuit, Shin could play that. Hercules, yeah.
Yeah. Definitely beat themselves that game. That's just...
Not to take any credit away from Dial, who did play really well. I mean, even when TSM is fucking up, beating them in 20 minutes is quite impressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a feat in its own.
Yeah. Looking forward to next week. I want to talk a little bit more about MM and the TSM matchup, because you said it earlier, and I think it's a really interesting idea. TSM is going to do well because TSM knows how to beat the experienced teams, knows how to beat the seasoned teams. Mm-hmm. Now, I agree and disagree. Like, on one hand, MM is a team that is experienced. They have some slight roster changes, but like, their newest player is Cyclone Spin, who's very strong mechanically.
Yes, he is.
And... like, Kiki moved roles, but he's doing okay. Like, you can't complain too much about Kiki's mid. And then everyone else was really good. So, like, yeah, there were some changes, but they're pretty good. TSM hasn't changed anything. And then Denial, like... and this is the hard part. Like, what makes Denial not count as an experienced team? Because you've got Shadow Q finally playing with his brother, Madman Mark, who's a fantastic carry, Xing back in the jungle, and the best has played solo lane for all of Season 1. He's playing it again in season 2?
because you get used to how a person plays.
Okay, so it's just sort of like they haven't played against Xing in the jungle, or Mace in the mid, or Best in the solo, or Shadowq in the support.
You tend to get used to like habits that a certain team does with certain players on that team.
Sure.
For like example, like I'll use Devios as an example. During like season 1, Devios will stand behind your tower because he's ahead of you and he just doesn't care and he's trying to divert attention to your lane.
Yeah.
That's what Devios will do. You know he will do that. Other solo lanes won't do it, but you can expect Devios to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can expect that to happen.
Yeah. Omega will stand right outside your Phoenix and press taunt. Like, he will do it.
Devios doesn't know what Best is going to do.
Yeah.
Devios isn't used to it. He doesn't know his tendencies. So, like, that can definitely catch you up. A player who is, how do I put it? If you can't predict the player, it could randomly lose you the game.
Sure. Then I think the issue is that, well, Kiki's new in mid. He's not as much of a carry for MM, but I don't think Boosh will really be able to predict him. At the same time, Boosh is so good that it, like, might not be an issue.
Middle's different. Middle's very passive.
Yeah.
But Boosh will pressure that for the first, like, 2 minutes.
Yeah. And then the second thing is really, I think Cyclone Spin, on one hand, like, Devios has played against him. He was on Chunks. On the other hand, like,
meta.
yeah, exactly. It's Cyclone Spin's meta.
this is Cyclone Spin's meta, so
Yeah, that's gonna be tough. Like, so if TSM is gonna win this game, how do they get past the fact that this is the perfect storm for Cyclone Spin?
Devios has a plan for Cyclone Spin. I know Devios has a plan for Cyclone Spin because he used it against me. And I'm not going to say what it is. I'm just going to leave it alone. I know what it is.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
I don't want to blow up his spot because, I would.
Yeah, that would be shitty.
But, like, yeah, I know he has a plan for Cyclone.
It's teleport gods, isn't it?
I'm not saying.
It's
I'm not
meditation,
saying what
isn't
it is. It's definitely meditation. It's meditation Cronus.
All right, we got it. Meditation confirmed. Yeah, I mean, I think having a plan for Cyclone Spin, and then, like, Garz should know how to deal with Weaken. Snoopy and Eonic should know how to deal with Incon and Allied. From that perspective, TSM has a good chance. On the other hand, I think MM plays a little differently this season than Complexity last season. Yes. I think, like, MM is an aggressive early game team that transitions to a mid game dominated by their solo lane carry, right?
Yes.
Season 1, Complexity was a team that did stuff. They sort of followed the meta, and every so often Kiki played something weird. Like, I don't think in Season 1 Complexity really had a very distinct playstyle. I don't think they were significantly different from any other team that was trying to imitate the Cogs.
No, I think, like, in the first season they were very, very standard. Like, it was very predictable.
So this is...
They were trying to get into the game, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, they were going through a lot of growing pains during the first season, to be honest. They ended third, so they're definitely, like, filled in the shoes as the game, as they sort of playing more, but, like, they were definitely, like, learning. They're definitely stronger this season than they were last season.
All right. So what would you call it? 2-1 TSM?
I'm not even gonna call like how many games. I'm gonna put it like this. I think.
All right.
If MM gets the early advantage, they can win the game.
So basically, can TSM weather the storm? Can they survive past the point where MM is strong and then play their game? Good prediction. I want to know what you guys think in chat. And all right, let's move on to the Challenger Cup.
I watched a lot of that actually.
Yeah, it was fun. It was good games. Great viewership. Shoutouts to Hinduman and the Zyodin for casting it on twitch.tv/Hinduman. Hopefully it'll be there next week. Hopefully they'll cast it again. We'll see what happens. But it was really cool. EGR finally didn't suck. Something clicked. What do you think happened? Obviously, I have my own opinions on their coach, but like, what do you think happened?
So, how do I put this? Lasted really well this weekend.
Yeah.
I'll stand by it. I still think that people just don't know how to play Nemesis, and they're not able.
Dare
to
to Care does.
so
Dare plays a lot of fucking Nemesis.
I think Dare even has like things to learn on Nemesis. I think
Sure.
like Dare is not at that point yet. But the other teams aren't picking it. So like, kudos to Dare for playing it and giving Last the opportunity to carry games, right? So Aurora's doing pretty well. He's making up for when Last isn't like when Zatman isn't doing his thing, and Zatman's picking up the slack for Aurora. I didn't see much of Anatoly. Did he do very well this weekend? The caches didn't really go on over there too much.
Yes, which I think is what Anatoly does.
Okay, good. So,
Like, I mean, let's be honest. Anatoly's your boy that you put him in solo lane, you forget.
yeah.
It'll be fine.
So, the thing that I want to say, right, and I think it's funny, because they
right.
were so lucky that High Five beat Jerb's team, because for some reason,
My man Brochacho.
Jerb's team is EGR's Kryptonite. For some reason, Jerb will refuse to lose to EGR, but they'll lose to everyone else and not give a damn.
Jerby plays so fucking well against us. I don't know what it is.
Refuses to lose.
He does.
To EGR.
He plays really well against our team. It's really, it's an issue.
I don't know why. I don't know how, but he just loves beating EGR. That's just what he does. I don't know why. But the moment High Five beat Jerb's team, it was like, wow, they're probably gonna win this week.
Yeah. The other thing I want to mention, Legion again making it to the finals, still the highest seed going into week 3. DJ Pernicus is playing a lot of Mercury jungle. It seems like it's his thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, and this isn't taken away from that team. I think that team is good. I think that Legions has a free bracket. I think the other side is a lot more stacked, and they're gonna keep getting to the finals, and that's why they're like #1 seed. And that's not taking anything away from them. They're good teams. They'll probably
They're
beat
definitely playing well.
the other side,
Yeah.
and they are playing well. But I don't think that like. I think the only games you really count from that side are them going against like the last team.
Semifinals and finals.
Yeah, and that's the semifinals also. That's just my opinion on that. I could be wrong.
Well, that's sort of the nature of first seed in general, right? Like you go up against 16th seed, then 8th seed, then 4th seed. So your hardest game is in the finals, whereas like on the other side of the bracket, it's more difficult. Like you're hitting what, like 5th seed and then like 3rd seed, right?
Yep.
And then 2nd seed. So but yeah, that Mercury on TJ Pernicus really seems like he's found a very unique thing that he is good at. And I don't think we've really seen that from anyone else. But it very much works for Pern, which is interesting.
I guess. I also think like the character's gonna do a lot better when players don't know how to play against. I think Mercury's one of the characters that punish newer players more than other characters. So he might just be the godsend to fucking Mercury. Like he could just be the best Mercury player in the world, but he I want to see him use it more against the bigger teams.
Well, it's also a god that like you have to remember how to play against. So a little bit similar to when Thor comes back in the meta, like if you fight in a corridor. If you fight in somewhere where there is a long straight line, you can be sure that Mercury will ult down that straight line and hit 4 people.
Yeah.
So not only are his mechanics good on the god, but he's also positioning well around the map and then getting into the team fights and positioning well in the team fights. It's really scary.
Yes. He's really smart with stuff like that.
Yeah, he is. That's something that Pern has always been fantastic at. And honestly, I think Mercury in some ways is a very interesting character. What he brings to the table with his ultimate, of it being essentially global, but only within the confines of, like, the map, right? Mm-hmm. As opposed to a Thor ult where it's like, yeah, I can go fucking anywhere, is really cool. And then there's just sort of the fact that he presses 2 and he punches people and they just die, which is really uncool, so...
Yeah.
Little... There's a... It's very weird, right? You have, like, one of the coolest and most interesting mechanics that's very strong, and then you have one of the most boring ways something can be very strong, and then it just fucking kills you.
I like auto attack gods. Don't take that away from me.
Alright, I'm gonna soapbox a little bit. I have a problem. I like auto attack gods. At the same time, I think the design of a god being like, I'm gonna press my steroid button and I'm gonna punch you to death real quick is problematic because you can only have so many in the meta at a time.
That's true.
Like right now, you've got Arachne, you've got Bakasura, maybe Pern plays Merc, so let's throw Merc in there. You can play that. But like Ao Kuang, occasionally seen by some players, but is he as good as Arachne or Bakasura? Like, I don't know. There just is only so much room for gods that walk up to you and kill you real quick. Better stop them from not getting close to you based on which one's good. Like, if... Here's what I'm trying to say. If Arachne is just better at doing the job than Ao Kuang, you don't have a reason to pick Ao Kuang. Because there's only so many ways that what they do can be different.
You're right. You're right. That being said...
It's really funny.
That being said, I would love to see characters like Xin Zhao and stuff onto this game.
What do you mean by that?
Alright, so there's auto attack characters, right?
Yep.
But, like, Xin Zhao is a character that, for example, like, I like this ability in Xin Zhao where you press Q, it gives you a steroid in your auto attacks, 1 auto attack, 2 auto attack, on your 3rd auto attack, it knocks the person up.
A little bit like a Wheelix?
Sort of, but it only happens on the auto attack. You don't auto attack and press a button. Like, you have to hit them 3 times. And things like that are fun. And
yeah, I think that sort of stuff is cool.
A character like Ribbon would be fun, where like, you're extra damage after an ability.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
so it's like ability auto. Like, there's ways to, I think, make the walk up and kill you mechanic more interesting, but at the same time, like, you want there to be some level of variation between the gods.
Yes.
And, like, the way that they end up playing is just sort of like walk up to you, left click a few times, oh, you're dead. There's not so much you can do. Like, I think that's I don't like Bellona. I just don't enjoy playing her. And I think my issue with that is that, like, what makes her cool isn't what you actually do.
Yeah.
What makes her cool is, like, switching weapons and having different attack chains and using your 2, which is a really cool ability, but you don't get to do that, you just auto-attack with your flail forever. Yeah. And it's really important that gods get to play their cool mechanics. It's really important that Ao Kuang has to make the decision whether to auto-attack with his dragon or throw his dragon. It's really cool that he positions to get his execute off. It's really cool that Baka tries to use his cleave as best he can. And it's really cool that Arachne fucking flies away, because spiders can fucking fly, and she doesn't give a shit about anything. Fuck that god.
Agree. I hate Arachne so much.
Like, Arachne's the character where you're fighting, lots of damage is going out, Arachne walks up to you and kills you, and that's okay. Bakasura and Ao Kuang would do that, Mercury would do that, lots of assassins would do that. A Wheelix would do it too. But then she heals up and flies the fuck away on her bullshit webs. You go to cracking her, she flies the fuck away. You run away, she flies at you and chases you. She goes so far. Fuck that god.
Really far too, and she's just running. Like, you're like, when is this thing gonna end?
Yeah, it lasts like 6 seconds. Like, you see a Freya ulting and Arachne just walks by like, yo, you a bitch. You may have done it first, but I do it better.
You know that Arachne could go from the solo lane tower to her solo lane tower in her ult. Yeah. If she dives you, she can ult and get back to her tower before you can touch her.
Yeah. Just flies the fuck away. Alright, guys.
Just make a Superman Arachne skin where she just flies.
Yes! Superman Arachne, please. Okay, yes, Hunzin, I know she's technically walking on the air, but let's be real, she flies the fuck away. Like, she just flies away. She's gone. That's going to be the end of our show. Wolfie, where can the people find you? What do you do? Who are you? Why do they call you the 2032?
Well, you can find me on twitch.tv/competitive_online. I am Wolfie. I play everything, I guess, except dual lane, screw dual lane. And yeah, I stream all day and talk to girls. That's all I do.
Alright, you can also follow him on Twitter, twitter.com/co_Wolfie. You can find me Twitter, EGR Krett. Twitch, Kretuhtuh with the TUH, YouTube, which is where this will be uploaded, youtube.com/Kretuhtuh with the TUH. And if you're watching on YouTube, would appreciate the like, comment, subscribe, etc., etc. I'm doing an AMA. It's back. I got over 400 comments in 4 hours, which is fucking crazy. I've been answering all day. Keep up the good work. I'm going to go catch up now. Thanks for coming out and watching our show. You can find my AMA on Reddit. You guys have been awesome. We'll see you next week. Hopefully Tom will be back because Wolfie's a bitch. Peace!
Bye. Cutest emote in the game.